There's not a typical homeless person.
There's so many reasons, and everybody has their own story.
But it's very real, and it's in our community. It's in every community.
It could happen to anyone, and it happened to me.
Housing insecurity, particularly among college students, is becoming a national epidemic.
At the national level, I can tell you that there is the Hope Center at Temple University that has amazing research. Their surveys, many times from those students who answer their questions and elaborate on what their current status is, 40 to 50% of the students who complete the survey are experiencing food or housing insecurity.
In this past year, over 2,000 students were identified as homeless in DuPage County.
And those numbers include members of the COD community.
In terms of housing insecurity, we had about 108 students that self-identified. From those, 91 of them confirmed that they were in need of support.
And while that might not seem like a lot, those numbers could easily be higher than the data shows.
They may be staying with a family member or staying with a friend, and if that's the case, they may not actually be reaching out, and if they aren't, we can't capture that data.
I think that behind the scenes, we don't know how many individuals are dealing with these issues and not reporting or not securing support.
So homelessness is caused by a number of factors. We talk about societal factors being a big one. The lack of affordable housing in the community can be a driver of homelessness. We see people that have had housing but have faced eviction due to falling on hard times, often financially driven.
Job loss. So you'll have your own apartment, you'll have your own space, you're barely making ends meet, and then you lose your job, and that's just that final factor that causes you to not have a place of your own.
We've certainly seen a fair number of individuals and families that are escaping domestic violence.
As food prices have gone up and apartment rents have gone up, people who are living right at that edge will oftentimes fall over it because pricing versus what they're earning just simply don't match up, especially in a county like ours that's very expensive to live in.
Or they have been asked to move out of a house, and it could be that they are in a relationship that is no longer viable.
Every situation is different and every need is different. That's why it makes homelessness in DuPage County so complex.
Regardless of the numbers, there are various types of housing insecurity that people face.
There's episodic homelessness, there's transitional homelessness, chronic homelessness, and hidden homelessness.
We serve people that are experiencing episodic homelessness, which may be a one-time experience. It may go on for longer than a person expects. It just depends on how long it takes them to achieve their housing goals.
So oftentimes this happens when people are at poverty level or very near poverty level, so they're struggling to make ends meet.
But uniquely enough, episodic homelessness could also be a disaster. Perhaps like the Woodridge tornadoes, when we had the tornadoes that came through in 2021, through Naperville and Woodridge and Darien, and that displaced people who found themselves to be homeless. Something where it perhaps could have been job loss, or a catastrophic health event, or divorce, or fleeing domestic violence. And persons who have gone through that type of an event might find themselves in an emergency shelter. They might find themselves in a transitional housing program, which many of our providers here in DuPage County offer. It's usually a longer-term program, perhaps several months, upwards of 2 years, but they need a stabilization. They need longer-term stabilization in order to return to self-sufficiency. So individuals who are experiencing chronic homelessness are truly what most people see.
Chronic homelessness, which means they've been homeless for a very long period of time, plus are struggling with some sort of disabling condition, which is usually a barrier to obtaining housing.
Individuals who might have a mental health disorder or a substance use disorder or a physical disability that just does not allow them to be housed for long periods of time or a return to self-sufficiency or stability.
You find a place to stay for a short period of time, but you're not able to retain that and you become homeless again.
The families we work with are frequently called the hidden homeless because they're not, the single adult standing out on maybe the street corner with a sign asking for help. They're not necessarily the people who have been living outside.
They're sharing housing with family, with friends, often on a very temporary basis where they have no rights to the residence, and they may be sleeping in circumstances that involve sleeping on a couch, sleeping on a floor, sleeping anywhere that somebody could have shelter but without a place to call their own.
So we see people who are living in cars.
I did spend a couple nights in my car. The first night I went to Walmart. I figured that was going to be a safe space.
We see people who are couch surfing.
I was homeless. I was left with no home, and I was couch surfing.
No matter what type of housing insecurity, the stigma that goes along with it and the effects it takes on those suffering from it can be severe and have significant consequences.
Homelessness can be really tough on individuals.
They are often traumatized from many past experiences.
It's tough on your physical health. If you don't have a sink to brush your teeth in, the risk of you being harmed goes up because you have no physical protection. And we do hear that oftentimes from clients.
You have also the academic world to where they don't have enough time to even study, do their homework. So it affects them tremendously when it comes to being homeless and trying to go to school at the same time.
It's really hard to do homework because you don't have a quiet place to study. And you don't have a lot of stability where a bus can pick you up and take you to school. If you don't have an address, it's really hard for you to get a job or even to get public benefits because they have to be sent somewhere.
Homelessness is traumatizing. It's traumatizing. It can feel hopeless. People feel powerless over their destination.
You feel very insecure going through something like this. You feel, you doubt all your life choices that you've made up to this point, and you wonder what's wrong, with why did this happen? What did I do wrong?
We hear from our clients oftentimes that they feel stigmatized. People will assume that they did something wrong to cause them to be in their circumstances.
This was on me that I deserved it, right? Because that's really what society puts on you as someone that's homeless, right? You've done something wrong and you don't deserve the help. Is typically what people will think of as someone that's homeless.
Stigmas of homelessness are that people are dangerous, that people deserve it, that they did it to themselves, and that they should do better on their own.
And a lot of people assume that someone that's homeless is either lazy, not working, or doesn't want to work. I worked really hard. Sometimes I had 2 jobs, but I still couldn't make enough.
Stigma is dangerous to people because it casts people in a light that is not helpful to them achieving better things in their lives. What we see with the clients is that they feel stigmatized by others often. They're seen in a negative light and therefore they feel cut off from services and resources, and it makes it hard for them to reach out for the help they may need.
I fell into the whole trap of I didn't deserve help because I was working. I didn't deserve support because I was educated. And I didn't know what to do, and I felt very lonely and embarrassed and super ashamed that I just wouldn't tell anyone. And I just tried to live a day at a time until there were days I didn't even want to live. I was hoping I just wouldn't wake up.
The COVID-19 pandemic changed housing insecurity for both those afflicted and the organizations who offer support.
Some of the things that we have found working with families coming into our program since the COVID pandemic is the levels of trauma, the levels of anxiety and depression that families are facing. And then for children, the level of disruption that schools had over the last couple of years.
During COVID, during the time where evictions were not happening, there was kind of a lull in our intake, interestingly, because people were kind of staying put. And maybe the people who would have been hopping from relative to relative and staying on couches, maybe they were just staying at one relative's place.
At the end of the eviction moratorium, rents were raised, and significantly. We have anecdotal stories everywhere of individuals and families who had been in a unit for 8 years, and their rent was $1,200 a month, and following the eviction moratorium, it went up to $1,600 a month. And they could no longer afford the $400 a month increase on the current income that they had.
After COVID, and especially once the moratorium on evictions was lifted, then there were many more folks who needed help, and so then our intake has, even up until today, just gotten very, very busy.
While challenging to accept, caring, proven help is available.
The solution to homelessness is always housing. Now, how do you obtain housing? That's the big question. It's different things for different people.
We have a multitude of agencies here in DuPage County that are working tirelessly to house and provide supports and services to the individuals who find themselves experiencing homelessness.
It takes an awful lot of courage to come forward and say you have nowhere to live and that you have no home, that you're homeless. We do have people who've been uncomfortable coming in and telling us,
don't do this alone. There's resources and there's people.
The first solution is to simply give people a safe bed to sleep in. Make sure that they have safety, make sure that they have food, make sure that they have access to the resources to get to whatever that next step is. Over the long term, we need enough affordable housing for people to live in. We're in a county, DuPage is a county, where there's simply not enough apartments available for the number of renters out there.
And College of DuPage is here to help.
We've been able to actively support those students who want and come in and are willing to be supported or referred. So that's where, we have reached a point now to be even closer to that knowledge and specific data gathering of what's happening with homelessness here locally.
We try to get the word out so that we know, our adjuncts are giving information to their students. I serve on the BIT, it's the Behavior Intervention Team. I see the other side of the students, right? Students in crisis, to try to get support for them, but also support for the instructors so that they're aware on the services that we can provide for their students.
Whenever we have a student who comes forward, sometimes they're hesitating about what their next step will be. And so we try to find resources, but many times in their mind, the first thing that they want to do is to withdraw from school and to stop doing what they're doing so that they can go and secure another job, a second job, a third job. So that is a big impact. It sometimes paralyzes their goal to get that educational plan that they may have, or that dream of becoming, a dental hygienist, for example. So it is a significant impact because it may keep them in a situation that they could improve if they get that degree or certificate that is going to allow them to get better employment.
That we can help you be successful as a student, to take that stigma away so that you can be successful. And that's one of the things that students don't know, is that we take that away. We want you to be here, and to help you be here, what can we do better to help you be that?
We're ready to provide direction, guidance, support, anything that is within our capacity and power.
You need to know that there's help out there, and there's good help out there and good people in the community. I mean, we're very fortunate.
It's not everyone chooses that situation. My face is a face of a homeless person, and it's not, what you think of as a typical homeless person.
We need to care about the student. So that culture of care is something that is top of mind for us and that we continue to discuss here at the college all the time.